Hi friends, it's another day learning about the gray whale. Today we're going to read this book. This is a story, but it also is filled with facts about the gray whale. It's really great. It's called Little Gray's Great Migration. The page in our book we'll work on today is the food page. And there's a great couple pages or one page in this book that tells about the food and how they eat. So I'll warn you to pay extra close attention when we get to that page. But I want you to think, we talked a little bit about their eating yesterday. There was a lot of things we talked about. Do you remember, do they eat, how do they eat? Well, actually, let me start back up a little bit. There's two types of whales. There are whales that have teeth, like an orca, right? And there's whales that have baleen, which is kind of like long hairs in their mouth, and they scoop up water or mud from the bottom and get it in their mouth, and then they push back out what they don't need and keep what they do want as food in their mouth. So are gray whales, do they have teeth or do they have baleen? Baleen. Yeah, they're baleen whales. So let's read. Okay, let's read and let's see what we learn in this book. This is kind of a story too, which is kind of interesting. And you'll see a little bit in this book about the social nature of gray whales, that gray whales are one of the friendliest whales when it comes to like interacting with people. Although if you were ever on a boat, I want to say this before we read this book, if you were ever on a boat and you were out like to do whale watching or look at whales, it'd be really important that you don't go to the whales. If they came to you, that would be different, but you want to be really respectful of whales and their habitat and really give them space to live on their own. It's really important for their protection and their survival that people and boats don't get too close to them. So you really want to keep your distance. It might seem a little bit different in this book when the people are close to the whales, but I want to let you know that that is really an important thing. And in many places, there's laws that protect the whales and you can't get too close to them. So keep that in mind as we read. Here we go. Little Gray's Great Migration. And the pictures are in this book are really cool. It's kind of like they're cut out of paper collage pictures. They're beautiful. Excuse me. Little Gray, excuse me. Little Gray popped his head above the water to look for his favorite thing. And there it was. A boat full of people was on its way into the lagoon. And remember, this is a storybook. I don't know if it's true that, gray whales are the most social, but I don't know if they love people that much. But this is a great story, so let's go with it. Little Gray always greeted the people the same way. First, he went right up to the boat for a head rub. Next, he blasted bubbles out of his blowhole. Burble, burble. And then he hit the water with his flukes. Slap, slap, slap. Finally, Little Gray jumped as high as he could, and smack! The people clapped and shouted. Snap, snap, snap went their cameras. And I believe the flukes are their tails. You might know more than me, but I think that's another word for their tail. When it said he smacked the flukes, I think that's the tail. One morning, Mama Gray wouldn't let Little Gray greet the people. It's time for us to swim to the special sea that's filled with food, said Mama. Why? Asked Little Gray. There's plenty for me to eat here. After all, he ate as much of Mama's milk as he wanted. Remember the same in the other book? The special sea is where you'll learn to eat like a grown-up whale, said Mama. It's also where we'll make our blubber extra thick before winter when there's hardly any food. Little Gray hurried to follow Mama out of the lagoon, but he looked back at the boats the whole time. I think Little Gray might be sad to be leaving the lagoon and the people that he enjoyed seeing. The ocean was cold. It was so dark Little Gray could barely see. Sometimes they stopped for Little Gray to drink milk. Sometimes they stopped to rest. But mostly they swam. They swam all day and all night. It was hard work and nothing like the lagoon. Little Gray missed the people so much. The more he thought about this, the sadder he became and the slower he swam. Up ahead, land stuck out into the water right in their path. What should we do? Asked Little Gray. He hoped they would have to go back to the lagoon. We'll have to swim around it, said Mama. Little Gray sighed, but as they swam closer to the land, Little Gray saw something above the waves. What did Little Gray see? People! Little Gray was so excited he jumped as high as he could. Smack! A crowd gathered. Snap, snap, snap went their cameras. Little Gray jumped again and again. He hadn't known that there would be people along the way to the special sea. As they continued on, people watched Little Gray from lighthouses and docks, beaches and boats. The more people he saw, the happier he became, and the faster he swam. But then everything changed. Days went by without seeing any people, and then weeks. Little Gray got sadder and sadder and swam slower and slower until he stopped. But Mama didn't notice. Soon Little Gray couldn't see her in the dark waters. Mama, squeaked Little Gray. He didn't know which way to go. The water was very quiet. Where was she? Then Little Gray heard something. Knock, knock, knock. I think that's the sound of Mama calling him. Whales make really neat sounds underwater. Little Gray swam towards the knocking sounds. There was Mama. As he got closer to her, Little Gray noticed something strange. Mama's sides were sinking in. Mama, you look different, Little Gray said. My blubber's getting very thin, said Mama. Remember, is she eating right now? No, she really just eats in the summertime up in the Arctic, and then the journey down, the stay in that lagoon, she doesn't eat much at all. Little Gray thought about this. Back in the lagoon, there hadn't been any grown-up whale food from Mama. On their journey, Mama had only eaten a few mouthfuls of krill and amphipods here and there. Little Gray had been drinking milk this whole time, but Mama had barely eaten in months. Oh boy. From that moment on, Little Gray didn't think about missing the people. He only thought about Mama getting to the special sea. The more he thought about this, the faster he swam. They swam faster and faster, and they were getting closer and closer when, oh no, said Little Gray. Up ahead, a huge piece of land stuck out into the water, blocking their way. Little Gray knew Mama was too weak to make it all the way around the land. There's a secret passage, said Mama. It's a shortcut to the special sea, but I'm so hungry I'm having trouble remembering where it is. I'll find it, said Little Gray. Little Gray swam back and forth along the land. It all looked the same. What if he couldn't find the passage? Then Little Gray heard something. It was the knocking and popping sounds of hundreds of other gray whales. Little Gray followed the sounds a little farther. There it was. He found the passage. Guess he was hearing the whales that were already on the other side. As they entered the passage, everything changed. The water got greener, the knocking got louder, the passage got wider. Then it opened up to a vast sea. Right away, Mama dove down to the bottom. Little Gray followed. This is the page to listen to for food. Mama sucked up a big mouthful of mud. Mama used her tongue to push the mud out through her baleen. Swoosh! When Mama opened her mouth, Little Gray could hardly believe what was inside. Mama swallowed it all with one big gulp. Little Gray decided to try. He sucked up a mouthful of mud. Swoosh! Gulp. It was pretty different from milk, but yum! Little Gray popped his head above the water to look around. A sea lion clapped her flippers together. Whap, whap. A gull flying above Little Gray squawked, caw, caw. A beluga whale sent a big bubble toward Little Gray. Bloop. Why, this might be more fun than the lagoon. Ooh, so they found this special sea where they'll spend the summer. Little Gray blasted bubbles out of his blowhole. Burble, burble. Then he hit the water with his flukes. Slap, slap, slap. Finally, Little Gray jumped as high as he could. Smack. Okay, and that's the end of that book. There's some pages in the back with some facts about whales, but we won't read them all today. I'm looking to see if there's one in this book about the food. Let's see. Here it is. I knew there was. This page says whale food, so let me read this page. Gray whales are a kind of baleen whale. Baleen whales don't have teeth, and then instead they have baleen made of keratin, the same thing human hair and fingernails are made from. Baleen is a filter that traps the whale's prey. Gray whales eat small crustaceans and mollusks that live on and above the seafloor, like little shells or like little shrimp-like creatures or krill. One of the gray whale's favorite foods is small shrimp-like creatures called amphipods. They also like mysid shrimp, polychaete worms, and krill. Okay, so favorite foods are amphipods, mysid shrimp, polychaete worms, and krill. And they find those down near the bottom. Gray whales are the only whales that are bottom feeders. They're the only ones that go down to the bottom to eat their food. Gray whales eat by turning to one side and sucking up a mouthful of water, mud, and prey off the seafloor. They press their tongues up against the roof of their mouth to push water and mud out through the baleen while keeping the food trapped inside. Adult gray whales can eat 2,600 pounds of food in a day. During the feeding months in the spring, summer, and fall, gray whales build up a thick layer of fat called blubber all over their bodies. This layer of blubber can grow up to 10 inches, about like this thick. And whales live off that fat stored in their blubber when there's no food to eat. Gray whales eat very little during their migration south and while in winter calving grounds. So they need a thick layer of blubber to last until they return north to their primary feeding grounds in the spring. Okay, so I know that there is a lot of information in this book. We're going to really focus in on the food for today. So open this book up and turn to the food page. It's the next page. F-O-O-D spells food. And now that was a little, some of those foods that we learned were a little bit tricky. And so it's shrimp-like creatures. So we can say shrimp. They're shrimp-like creatures, worms, and krill. So let's say shrimp, worm, and krill. Okay, so they eat types of shrimp, worms, and krill from the bottom of the seafloor. You could even add, if you wanted to, how much they eat in a day. Remember we learned that? 2,600 pounds of food in one day. Maybe we should add that into our fact too. So let's write in our books. I'll share it with you. You can remember, you can feel free to go ahead and write your own fact if you can remember a fact, or we can work on one together. Okay, so let's write adults, because remember, what do the calves eat? Yeah, they eat milk from their moms, right? They nurse. Adults eat, and let's write how many pounds? 2,000, then this is a comma, 600 pounds, P-O-U-N-D-S. And if you need to pause me to copy these words, feel free. Adults eat 2,600 pounds of Now, there were three things we said they eat. Do you remember them? Shrimp, worms, krill. Okay, adults eat 2,600 pounds of shrimp, worms, and we'll know this shrimp is like the mysid shrimp and the amphipods that are like shrimps. Okay, shrimp, worms, and krill. Okay, so you can copy that. Adults eat 2,600 pounds of shrimp, worms, and krill. And where do they find it? Yeah, from the bottom of the sea, right? We can say from the ocean bottom. From F-R-O-M, and the T-H-E spells the, T-H-E spells the, and krill from the ocean bottom. Ocean, O-C-E-A-N, the C, shh. That C is making a funny sound there. From the ocean bottom, B-O-T-T-O-M. And then end mark, period. Adults eat 2,600 pounds of shrimp, worms, and krill from the ocean bottom. Okay, and then it'll be time to draw that picture. So if you need to pause me to copy those words, please do. I don't want you to have to rush. Do your neat handwriting. Okay, and then let's do the picture down here. So I'm going to do down here at the bottom, maybe like a couple of rocks, just to kind of show that this is like the bottom of the ocean down here. Maybe I'll do a rock over here too. And like little shrimp-like creatures and right, worms, krill, little teeny, tiny, this little teeny tiny swimming shrimp and worms. Okay, so just draw those. I'm gonna draw, maybe I'll add some sand down at the bottom. And then I'm going to add a whale because I want to show my whale kind of coming down to the bottom to, I'm doing my best for this whale, everybody. If it doesn't look perfect, that's okay. In fact, mine looks a little bit silly, but I think it's okay. I'm going to add I'm going to look at my cover whale to see the fins. I'm going to get those fins in. And O and I there. That helped adding the I, didn't it? And then remember they have the, my whale's a little bit skinny looking to me. Maybe it's a whale that just came back from the lagoon, right? Maybe it's hasn't been feeding a lot. And then they have all the barnacles. Okay. And I could even, let's see if I could do this. I could try making its mouth open a little bit to show that it's a baleen whale. Remember they have baleen. So I could do that a little bit there. If you, oh, there goes my pencil. If you want to also write something like they are baleen whales, you could write that. That'd be an interesting fact, or something like they're the only whales that eat off the bottom. That's interesting too. Okay, so the next step would be, and I won't have you watch me do this all the way, but I'm going to flip my book up because if I use my black marker, it can bleed through and I don't want it to. So the next step is to trace your picture, right, with the Sharpie or the black marker, and then color. Okay, so I won't have you watch me totally do that because I know that gets a little bit long and maybe not as interesting as it could be. So I'll just stop there and I'll end the video and let you finish up with the picture part of your page here. So draw the picture, outline it, and color it. Okie dokie. I know you can do it. And I'll see you later. We'll be back tomorrow for the next page in our book. See you later.